Hello and welcome to my feature highlights of July 2026 with SAP Business Data Cloud and Datasphere. July was a focused single release month, only one release with 2026-16, but the team packed a lot into it. So let's dive into my top features for July. Let's kick off with two replication flow improvements that shipped together this month. First, you can now use local table files as source objects in replication flows. If you have data sitting in a local table file in Datasphere, you can now replicate it directly to supported SAP and non-SAP targets without having to re-extract from the original source. One flow straight from the file. Second, SAP BW and SAP ECC sources now support delta load types. Until this release, you were limited to initial only. Now you can run initial and delta as well as delta only, so you're no longer forced to do a full reload every time. Both of these address real project needs if you're working with replication flows regularly. The next one extends what you can do with transformation flows running in file spaces. Two new capabilities here. First, you can now insert records from Delta-enabled source tables into non-Delta targets. Previously, that combination wasn't supported, now it is. Second, for initial-only loads, you can enable a delete all before loading option that automatically clears the target table before each run. So each run starts clean without any manual cleanup step. The next one, you can now use the Cloud Connector for object store connections. So Amazon S3, Azure Data Lake Gen 2, Google Cloud Storage, Microsoft OneLake, and for Microsoft Azure SQL Database. If your environment doesn't have public endpoints, Cloud Connector routes traffic through a TLS tunnel, so replication flows can still reach it. One prerequisite: Cloud Connector needs to be set up first in your landscape. The new REST API for replication flows comes first as a restricted release on EU10 landscapes only. You can now connect to any external REST API as a source in replication flows and land the data directly in your object store space. The connection type is custom, meaning you define it yourself in connection management based on the structure of your REST API. So you describe the resources, actions, and entities, and Datasphere generates the connection type artifact from that definition. Once the connection type exists, you create a connection instance from it the same way you create any other connection and then use it as the source in a replication flow with a local table file as the target. A few things to keep in mind here. This is available for the object store space only. Initial and delta replication are both supported. Projection, filtering, and mapping are currently not part of the restricted release, and schema changes on the source side are not automatically handled. So if your REST API changes its entity structure, you need to reconfigure that manually. If you're on EU10 and want to test this in the restricted release, follow the SAP note 3696110 to request rep activation. This one is an admin heads up for everyone with HANA Cloud connections. The SAP HANA Cloud is migrating to DigiCert TLS RSA 1496 root G5 certificates by the end of November. That's really a mouthful. Before that happens, upload the new root certificates to your Datasphere Trust Store under System, Configurations and Security Certificates. If you miss it, your HANA Cloud connections will break. Check SAP Node 3399573 for the exact migration schedule. From the local table monitor, you can now display partitioning details of your local tables directly in Datasphere. If you're working with large local tables and using partitioning to manage performance and storage, this gives you visibility into how those tables are actually partitioned without having to go outside of Datasphere to check that. It's a straightforward addition to the monitoring toolset, but useful for anyone monitoring large tables at scale. If your Datasphere is part of a BDC formation, columns containing personal or sensitive personal data installed from a BDC data product are now automatically tagged in the catalog. Those tags are visible in the table and view editors, and as subsequent entities that consume that data, they inherit the tags too. So you can also see them in the data viewer and in the impact and lineage analysis diagram. So instead of manually tracking which columns contain personal data across your whole data landscape, the tag carries through automatically as downstream entities consume that data. The next one is really my top pick for July. You can now manage transport packages fully via the Datasphere CLI. So list, create, read, update, delete, and export all from the command line. If you're running Datasphere through automation or DevOps pipelines, packages were the last thing that still needed manual UI interaction, and that gap is now closed. That's exactly why it's my top pick for July. So, all in all, another month packed with enhancements and useful new features, making SAP Business Data Cloud and Datasphere more powerful and easier to use. Thanks for joining me this month, and if you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up down here and keep following me on LinkedIn. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get the latest updates. Take care and see you soon.